So I think in the fitness industry, coaches are the most insecure people out there. And that insecurity causes them to portray this picture of perfection.
Welcome to another episode of the Resistingbeta podcast. I am here with another great guest this week. His name is Kevin Varno. And here's some questions that I have from him today. Why is grocery shopping killing us? And what can we do about it? And why do most men lack a healthy body? Why is that? Why do so many men struggle with it, with all the information out there on the internet and books and everything's at our fingertips, but yet it still escapes a large percentage of men out there? And what is the 10% rule, and how does that kind of connect the two of those? And the final one that I'm really curious about, that we'll probably spend a lot of time today on, I'm guessing, is what are the 5 components of finally having the mind and body we wish we had? So a little bit about Kevin. He helps men who are no longer under the illusion that they are one fad diet or a hyped up fitness routine away from their ideal weight. And he helps them change their beliefs and their identity to find the greatest health in a sustainable way. So Kevin, man, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Andrew, it's my pleasure, man. I appreciate the mission that you're on. It hits home for me. It goes parallel with a lot of the work that I do. And I just appreciate anybody who's willing to put themselves out there and take charge. And clearly you've done your research on me and you care deeply about this mission. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
For sure, man. I mean, tell the man a little bit about yourself and maybe the Reader's Digest version and why you're so excited to talk to our audience.
I'll make it quick, but I'm going to start at the beginning. I was born the youngest of 5. My oldest sister, 17 years older than me. I wasn't necessarily a planned child, and there was just this massive age gap in a household that was very functional, very loving, but lacked finances and lacked health. So I grew up fending for myself, watching my family struggle financially and struggle with their health, on medication, struggling with obesity. Everybody has anxiety. And I always felt like I didn't fit in. I felt, you could say, like a burden. And this isn't a knock on my family. They're the warmest, most welcoming family in the world. It was just the message that I got as a kid. This carried with me through school. And then at age 14, a coach saw me in gym class and asked, why I'm not on the track team. And that was the first time somebody saw potential in me. So at that point, I had just been kind of wandering around, trying to be whoever I thought everybody else wanted me to be, hoping to fit in. And in an instant, a coach saw potential in me. I followed his lead. I joined the track team. And for the first time in my life, I applied myself to something and got better at it. And I ended up scoring the most points on the track team my senior year. So somebody saw belief in me. I applied myself. I got really good at it, and I was hooked. And I would say that coach saved me from a spiraling mental health issue. I left high school, didn't go to a college that had sports teams, and I just started chasing fitness because it was the only place that I found belonging and success in my life. And through chasing my passion, I became a personal trainer at 19. So I've never had a real job. I've always worked for myself as a personal trainer. At 25, I built myself up enough that I became a part owner of a brick and mortar gym, and it was a CrossFit gym, and we blew it up, and it was great. And at 28, so 2 years ago, I kind of had an awakening moment where I realized I spent 13 years of my life without taking any days off, trying to make people's lives better. And as much as I had a great reputation, as much as people loved working with me, as much as people swore by what I did, humbly, I will say about 20% of them actually changed their lives. So I had an 80% failure rate. And I recognized that the big flaw in it was, if I'm waiting for the client in the gym, they show up having already diagnosed the problem and prescribed the solution. Problem is, I'm 20 pounds overweight. The solution is, I'm going to come and spend 3 hours with you per week, Kev. And I did that. They were happy. We had a great time. But then they went home to the same life, in the same environment, with the same mindset, because they weren't open for more than the time we had in the gym. So in 2021, overnight, I went cold turkey, stopped seeing clients in person, took it all through online, and now I do behavior modification coaching where I help people change the actual problem, which is the mindset, the identity, and the lifestyle that they live.
So let's dive in those three things. So it's behavior, the mindset, and what was the third one? Lifestyle?
Lifestyle,
Okay.
identity, mindset, behavior, all of them.
So let's dive into each of those because I'm kind of curious. So, what is the general mindset that most unhealthy people have for the men who have the best of intentions to lose weight? They try and they fail. And they try and they fail. And they gain and lose that same damn 10 pounds. They gain it and they lose it. And they gain it and they lose it. So, what is the mindset that is keeping them in that loop that keeps them arm's length away from where they actually want to be or where they should be?
I'm going to do my best to keep my answers short and concise because I could say a novel on just that question alone, but I would call it the pain to pleasure motivation theory. I think that humans are motivated by two things. We're either motivated to move away from pain or we're motivated to move toward pleasure. So when we talk about weight loss, it's all the motivation to move away from pain. So you see somebody who gets caught in that yo-yo, maybe the magic number on the scale for them is 290 pounds. That's the number that they see. And for whatever reason, they've decided that's their stop loss. Once I hit 290, the pain is too much. I can no longer look myself in the mirror. This is not who I am. This is beyond my identity. And I must change something because of the pain. And that individual is a hardworking, caring, strong individual who applies everything they have to run away from the pain. The problem is, once you lose 30 pounds, the pain isn't there anymore. The one thing they were using for fuel is gone. What they haven't done is they haven't created an identity, an image, a new version of themselves that brings them so much pleasure that they can now chase gaining something. So the people we see in that yo-yo, they're always running from pain, and when the pain goes away, they stop and the scale drifts back up. And then they run from pain again and they stop and the scale drifts back up. To break that cycle, you do need to reinvent your self-image. You need to create that man, and you need to find pleasure in living the life of that man and chasing and gaining the life of that man. And that is what I have found that is the issue that keeps people stuck in those yo-yo back and forth patterns.
What's the process? I mean, I think that men look at, I'm sure men might, I mean, do you ever get this where men look at you and be like, you're just built different. For some reason, I can't be you, right? I'm this, I'm that, my family this, my genes that, my thyroid this, my work this, what is like causing them to not embrace this identity of the healthiest version of themselves?
I think one of the worst things the fitness industry has done is put bodybuilding physiques on a pedestal. That's something I can't identify with. So one thing that you'll never see me do on social media is show my physique and use that as a billboard. Like, this is what you could be if you just do the Kevin Varno method. I had a coach, a sales coach. He was incredible. Best salesman I've ever met in my entire life. He sold me on his program. He coached me. He taught me how to sell. But where he could have done better, he could have showed me some vulnerability. The fact that I saw the greatest salesman I've ever met in front of me teach me his playbook, but I didn't see any of my own insecurities in him. I didn't see any of my vulnerability. I didn't see any of my lack in him. I couldn't even bridge the gap. Like, how does somebody like me, with my insecurities, with my struggles, how does somebody like me ever sell like somebody like him? And what it led to is I stopped being Kevin when I was on sales calls. I tried to be that person
Hmm.
because I didn't believe that I could have his skills. So I just said, okay, let me emulate him. And it ruined my business. It alienated my potential clients. It made me feel icky and sick. And what hit me was, if he had only shown me that he had insecurities too, then I could have related to him and seen, well, you know what? If that guy can sell like this, and he also has the insecurities that I have, then maybe one day I could be like him. So I think in the fitness industry, coaches are the most insecure people out there. And that insecurity causes them to portray this picture of perfection. I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. I do my meditation, my gratitude. I get in a cold plunge and I go run 10 miles. Then I come back and I make my egg whites and I have my exact macros. And they portray this life of perfection.
Hmm.
But guess what? I can't do that. I know I can't. So I got two options. I could go out there and I could be me and I can explain to people like, guys, I'm insecure. I've been told I have a phenomenal physique. I don't see it. I'm not excited about working out. I have to play a new mental game with myself every single week to motivate me to go work out. I enjoy the feeling of being full more than I enjoy the taste of food because as a kid I was taught to eat more than you needed because you don't know when the next meal's coming.
Hmm.
I have far more in common with the person who's struggling with their health than I do with the personal trainer online who's showing his shredded six pack saying that he's got it all figured out and everything's perfect.
Hmm.
And I think that that image makes men feel inferior and think, well, shit, I have got none of that. So therefore, I guess that life of health isn't for me. And they're just
Right.
can't, they can't bridge that gap. And hopefully the work I'm doing, being vulnerable, putting myself out there is letting people know, like, you don't need to love egg whites. You don't need to love exercise. You don't even need to be the most confident person in the world. You can still build a lifestyle that keeps you healthy and really, really supports a foundation of mental health, even if you feel like you lack in every area.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, man, because I think that, I mean, when I do a lot of research and trying to find guests and search hashtag men's health, and about half of the damn pictures are guys with basically nothing on. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I mean, I don't, like, why are you doing this? Is it because well, I know what it is. It's like they're seeking validation, almost like the same reason why when I'm looking at women and when I was dating, I would not date women who sought validation on social media. They're showing themselves in bikinis and their tits out and their ass, all that stuff to get likes, you know. But there's these men out there, and I think it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, to where a lot of guys, they see these guys with six packs and like, oh man, that guy just must be super happy and get all the women and all that stuff. But it's just not true. And in fact, a lot of these bodybuilder guys who are sitting at the low percentage of body fats, from what I've read, I could be wrong here and tell me if I'm wrong, that their libido and their life and they're cranky and they have a really shitty life for the most part. They're the average daily life to maintain that physique, right? Versus a fulfilled life of just having a healthy body. Am I on point there? Is that information accurate, or what do you think about that?
From my perception, I have the same opinion that you do. I can't be certain because I've never gone down the route of bodybuilding. I personally have always sustained a good physique through chasing performance goals, whether it was CrossFit or obstacle course racing. That's what entertained me. I
Hmm.
tried to do it for vanity purposes, and it didn't motivate me at all. And don't get me wrong, I want validation as much as anybody else. I want people to say, "Wow, Kev, you're incredible." I have a deep desire for that. But growing up, thank you, Dad. He instilled in me that that was not an admirable characteristic. So
Hmm.
since the time that I got into fitness, I have witnessed the part of me who wants all of the external validation. But the character that my dad instilled in me was, that's not an admirable trait to portray and chase. So I have the insecurity of the bodybuilder guys who want the validation. I just have not gone down that path, and I'm very thankful, because I know a lot of people who really regret not only the steroid use, but getting your body to that level of physique, because once you reach that level, nothing else seems good enough.
Yeah, that was funny that I was talking to my trainer that I work with at the gym, I don't know, last year sometime. And I was like, dude, I was reading a book at the time. I forget what it was, but basically it talked about, I think it was Darren Hardy mentioned or something like that, that as men, as we get older, we need to have some sort of fitness goal that challenges us significantly. Whether it be a marathon, whether it be an Ironman, whether it be the different types of races, or a bodybuilding competition, or a physique competition, or something like that. And I was like, I hate running. I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in the bodybuilding stuff for that same reason. Whereas, like, I know I will reach a certain point, and then the rest of my life I will compare myself to that 4% body fat where I won't remember how crappy I felt. I'll only know what I looked like, right? And I chose the races, so I'm glad I did a Spartan race last year, and that was such a rewarding experience to push myself and also humble myself. And it was fun to train for. So it was a little bit more of a functional goal versus a endurance or, eating goal, so that's
Dude,
cool.
you're hitting the nail on the head there. I've always had the phrase, like, you need something on the calendar. You need something that you're looking forward to, something that's going to test your ego, something that you need to show up that day and perform well. Because if you have that thing on the calendar, there's your motivation to work out. I don't have it intrinsically, so I always make sure there's something on the calendar. And even the CEO of Spartan, Joe D, he mentioned when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he mentioned his goal was to change, I don't know, a million people's lives, whatever it is, by giving them something to look forward to, by giving them an event on the calendar that inspires them to change the way they live. So it's not even just about the day of the event. That's just the shiny object at the end. It's what goes on in your life when you have that calendar event.
And I think it's interesting that when you start seeking those, because before that I was always attached to like spring break, spring break or summer, to where it's like, oh, okay, well, it's shirtless season and I need to feel okay about taking my shirt off. And still to this day, I've never been the guy that really enjoys that, and that's something I'm working on. So, working towards, I guess, and learning about myself, on being comfortable in my own skin. Not easy to do. A lot easier said than done. But having these little subtle changes of, like, I'm a guy who does this, and if it's Spartan races, if it's that kind of stuff, and I think that this building that new identity of, I'm someone who does things like Spartan races, or I'm somebody who does this, and then when you're pressed in hard moments or at a crossroads, having almost like a what would Jesus do moment, but like what would your best version of you do moment, and making the choice to do what that best version of you would do, right? And I think that this identity component that is the thing that's missing from most men. And I really appreciate you bringing up these concepts and these stories. I'm actually kind of curious, when you work with men, because I think a lot of people look at a trainer and be like, he's got good genes, right? I'm kind of curious about some of the before and after stories of the men that you've worked with from a mindset standpoint, or their general belief about themselves, and before they kind of started working with you, and after, you don't have to use their names or anything like that. You can make one up if you really want to. But I'm kind of curious about some stories here. So, are you comfortable sharing one or two for the men listening? Maybe if you have a guy that you've worked with who's divorced, went through this transformation, and kind of hit the ashes and from the beginning and rose like the phoenix. Like, do you have anything like that would be cool to tell?
So I got two stories that come to mind. Neither of them were divorced, but as I kind of break through these, I'll see if I can come up with one that fits that bill a little bit better. Um, I had this one gentleman, we'll call him Felix. He came to me, and I sell weight loss because the men I work with, where they're at is, I want to lose weight and all my problems will be solved. I know that's not the truth, but I sell them this concept of, hey, we're going to lose weight. By the end of the 12 weeks is the initial period that I work with people at. The weight loss is just the added bonus of the real transformation. And this gentleman, Felix, he came to me. He wanted to lose, 40 total pounds. And 3 weeks in, he was down 10 pounds. And it was simple. It was just basic lifestyle habits that he was putting in place. Going for a walk with his wife after work instead of worrying about going to the gym and pounding weights, or instead of sitting on the recliner like he usually did, drinking some more water. These basic little things. So 3 weeks in, I'm like, Felix, how you feeling, dude? You're down 10 pounds. And he goes, I feel great. In fact, it's not even that hard. But I'm excited to get to the weight that I want to be at, and then I can go back to normal. And this is a big problem. People think that there's a place called maintenance. They think once I get to the weight I'll be at, all my problems are solved, and I can just keep being the same person I am.
All right.
So this is a red flag. I take note of it. Next 6 weeks goes by, and after week 10, he's down 22 pounds. He just comes off of a great week where he lost 3 pounds in 1 week. And I say to him, like, Felix, dude, you had another huge week, man. You're down 3 pounds. Like, how was it? And he says to me, he goes, Kev, it just felt normal. So here's this guy who just wanted weight loss. He didn't want to change who he was. And when he sees a little bit of the weight loss, he says, this is cool, but I'm excited to stop doing these things that I have to do to lose the weight so I can be normal again. And then over the next month and a half, he shows up and he says, no, the weight's just coming off and I'm just being normal. And that's the final kind of brick that I look for in the wall to say, we've done it. We went from a fixed mindset of, this is who I am and there's no changing it. I just need a diet to save me because I don't have what it takes, to a growth mindset of, this is actually who I am and I am actually capable of change. So that's Felix's little thing there is, if it doesn't become normal, if you don't become the person who does these things normally, it's only short term. Another client I have is Joe. And Joe actually sent me a text probably like a month ago. And he flies a lot for work. And he got caught up in Florida during some crazy hurricane. And he was stuck there for like a week. And on the flight home, he shoots me a text. He says, I've never been so excited to see my wife and daughter before in my entire life. And I have you to thank for that. I love you. Joe didn't just lose weight. Joe created a whole new relationship with his job, with his family. He became the dad who goes to every basketball game, even if that means that he needs somebody to fill in at a meeting. Became the dad who played basketball with his kids. Became the guy who takes walks with his wife. It is the becoming of that guy that allows the weight to just fall off. And that's where I think most people get it wrong. So you're 100% right in the transformation being far beyond what we see on the scale.
Yeah, just writing down what you just said there. Becoming the guy where the weight just falls off. I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true, but I understand it because of the foundational key pieces of you're no longer the man you used to be. and your identity has truly changed at that point in time to where it's like, oh, this is what I do. This is it must be really interesting to see how someone views themselves change, where they go from I'm a guy, I'm just a chubby dude. I've always been chubby, and probably always going to be there, but I don't know, maybe I'll give it one more shot, right? To seeing themselves, I'm actually a fit guy, I'm a strong guy. And for me, that was interesting to where the perception of how other people saw me and how they talked to me changed, where they, in public and random spots, all of a sudden people were like, man, you're so this, all right? Like, man, you're must be great to be that strong or that much of a beast or whatever it is. Or they start putting you they start seeing you as the identity sometimes before you do. You know? So I think that was a super interesting transformation for me, to where it's like, oh, that's cool. And is that fairly common when, as people experience the exterior changes, maybe sometimes faster than the inside their own mind?
100%, dude. There's a lot of little tricks little Easter eggs that I plant along the 12 weeks that I work with men to give them the opportunity to see it. But you're 100% right. You see yourself every day. You have 40,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of them are the same thoughts as yesterday. You're just carrying who you were yesterday with you through life. It is so hard to break that cycle because our mind never stops. So if there's not strategic ways for the mirror to be held up to see the change, most times people will lose all this weight, never really feel good about it, and it's just a magnet to come back. So I do have my clients take progress photos, because more often than not, they need to see, this is where I was on day one, this is where I am 4 weeks later. Holy shit. I can look at these pictures, and in the picture, it's not me. I can subjectively look and see a difference. I don't feel the difference, but now that I see it, I know it's true. And one of the most moving things that I see happen, on week 7 of my 12-week thing, I have them do an assignment called the self-image. And I have them tell me about the guy they want to be. This is the ultimate destination. He's 200 pounds, 15% body fat. He can run a mile without stopping. He can keep up in a game of basketball with his buddies. He, reads his book every morning before he goes to work. He goes to the gym 5 days a week. All these things. I make them really understand the man that they want to be. And then I ask them, okay, so how many times a week does that man work out? How much water does that man drink? How many glasses of alcohol does that man have per week? And I ask them about 20 questions that are all behavioral. They're not outcome-based. They're not how much does he weigh on the scale, but just behavioral. And once I have them see, like, these are the behaviors of the man I want to be, then I say, okay, cool. Where do you match up? If that's how much he drinks per week, how much are you drinking per week? If that's how much he indulges, how much do you indulge? And at the end of the assignment, jaws drop. They say, holy shit, I've become that man. I'm literally living the life of the man I want to be today in 85% of the areas. I can see clearly which areas I need to improve on. The only difference is my biology might take another 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to reveal on the outside what these behaviors add up to. Yeah. And that's what I want a lot of people to understand. It's like, you need to build the life of that person many months before you see the physique of that person. But if you build that person's life, it's a no-brainer. You will get there. Biology just takes a little bit longer than we would all like.
Man, there's so much I want to say about this. I wish we had another hour. So it reminds me of a couple things. The story and the compound effect, where, have you read the book, The Compound Effect?
No.
By Darren Hardy. He talks about these 3 guys. One guy eats like 100 calories more. One guy eats the same calories, and one guy eats 100 calories left. And like 18 months in is like a 2 pound difference. But 3 years in, it's like a 30 pound difference. It's just the compound effect. It's the respect the process, not the results. And I'm really so excited that you told that story, because I think that a couple of things I wrote down. One of them is you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. It's one of the testaments to having a coach, because sometimes you're so stuck in your own head. And if you're not tracking something, you don't know what progress you're achieving, right? It's just, if it's in the scale, isn't necessarily the best. It's immeasurable, but it's not, doesn't tell the full story sometimes, right? Because water weight and salt intake and sleep and all those different components. So I'm just so glad that you shared that story with the men, and I think it's so cool to just help understand. We haven't even talked about some of the basics, because I think this stuff isn't necessarily hard. I mean, we kicked off this episode of like, you kind of, most likely, gentlemen, that you're listening to this, you have all the information you ever need. You just, for some reason, you haven't developed a why big enough to do it. Or maybe you believe you can't. Or maybe you just, I mean, when you told me this story about that pain pleasure index, I mean, that was like me 2 years ago, man. Like, that's why I said that. It's like I would gain the same 10 pounds all over the time. I'd feel myself get a little bit jiggly, and I'd be like, what's going on? Okay, well, just, all right, time to kick it up again. And then I'd drop back to my old habits, and they'd be like, woo, and I'd be in this freaking like wave pool of weight loss. And it wasn't until I started tracking stuff, I actually saw some results. And then I stopped tracking stuff because that was kind of annoying. And then just this week, I started tracking with this app called Macros First. And I don't know a lot about macros. I probably couldn't explain what actually they mean, but I'm good at frameworks and processes and tracking stuff. And because I'm tracking it, because prior to tracking it, I was like, why the hell am I so damn tired all the time? Like, just fucking exhausted. My workouts sucked. I was cranky. And I wasn't really changing the way I ate all that much. It didn't feel like it. But when I started tracking it, I was like, holy crap. I'm like way over in fat. And I'm like 100 grams short of protein. And now that I've been tracking it for 1 week, my energy, my workouts were amazing. My energy went way up. It's just been a huge change for me. And it was just because I started just tracking basically protein and carb intake and the healthy carbs and versus the carbs I know I can eat, which I don't really count them as carbs in my brain, like the fruits and vegetables. They are carbs, but I think most people hear carbs and they'd be like, bread. So I just appreciate that you mentioned those components of your client success for sure, man. So thanks for that.
My pleasure, dude. I think everybody's unique for sure. And the biggest thing is just being mindful of what we're doing in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So for my clients, the first form of tracking anything I have them do is just to take photos of everything they eat for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see where my client's at. Like, if I don't see under the hood, I can't be a very good mechanic.
Right.
But that's only like 25% of the reason why I do it.
Hmm.
The reality is, anybody watching this right now, I dare you. By the way, 90% of people don't do this. I dare you, take photos of everything that you consume for 3 whole days. Whatever you eat, no matter how big, no matter how small, whatever beverage you drink, take a photo of all of it for 3 days. And if you're not sure, like, well, do I have to? Yes, take a photo of all of it. So being a personal trainer for 11 years before moving into behavior modification coaching, I got asked the same questions nonstop. what should I have for breakfast to lose weight? What should I have the day before a race to feel good? Which all these questions of like microscopic details. But I knew that what the person really wanted was, I want my life to be better. Like, I'm checking under this rock of, if I just eat a different breakfast, will I lose weight? Will my life be better? So I stopped wasting my time and their time. I stopped answering those questions universally. And to this day, if somebody asks me a question, I send them the same video of me saying, for the past decade, anybody who's asked me that question, I've answered with, take 3 days of everything you eat and I will give you a complimentary coaching call. Free. 90% of people never send me the email because they're not willing to actually look at what they're doing. So whether it's an app where you track your macros and look at what you're doing to the finest details, or simply just stopping before you make the decision to take a photo, being mindful of what's happening is step one. There's not a single person on planet Earth who woke up, unless you're a linebacker or a sumo wrestler, nobody ever woke up one day 50 pounds overweight and said, I was mindful the whole time. How did this happen? It happened because you weren't paying attention, period. Mm-hmm. If you were paying attention, you wouldn't have made those decisions. So just simply taking photos is such a transformative process of, hey, I'm not changing anything, but at least I'm being honest with myself. I am having a pint of Ben & Jerry's. I'm not changing anything, but at least I'm being honest with myself. I am having 6 slices of pizza and 2 Dr. Peppers. I'm honest with myself. That's step one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's one of the big pushes in my life right now is keeping the little promises to myself every single day. And what I've found is if I go through a streak of breaking those promises, just the small ones, waking up early, not hitting the snooze button, putting the phone away before bed, tracking my food, making it to the gym 3 days a week, all this stuff, it's so easy to slip. And you slip for a day, and then it's 3 days, and then it's a couple weeks, and all of a sudden, depression sinks in. I start being really unkind to myself, almost like masochistic internally, of beating myself up of like, what were you doing? You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, you idiot. You know, like, what's wrong with me? You know, and all of those questions that like are just terrible fucking questions to ask yourself. But it all comes down to these little tiny promises. Or did you keep it, or did you break it? And I think that's just a huge, where a coach can kind of give you that inflection or whatever, that boost, the kick in the butt to, hey man, I'll be honest with you. Because a lot of guys don't have that friend that is going to be honest with them. So it's nice to have that coach that's going to be honest with them. Like, hey man, it's you know exactly what you're doing. And it's clear as day, but let's just do something about it, right? And at that point in time, they're putting their money where their mouth is, so they have motivation. So,
dude.
All right, man. Well, I know we're coming near to the end of this episode, and the time's flown by here. So there's 2 questions I ask every single guest. But the first one is kind of out of left field, but it's my favorite question. So if you haven't heard it, I'm kind of curious on your answer. What does it mean to be a man to you?
I think it means knowing who you really are, not just who everybody else wants you to be, or who the movies portray you should be, or who you think people are going to like, but knowing who you really are, and then having the courage to bet everything on it. I think that's what it means to be a man. To live fully in the path of who you really are. And that's a quick answer, but it might take a lifetime to find it out.
I mean, that's like the age-old question of like, why are we here? Who am I? And the what do I want, right? Who do I want to become? And that's one thing that I really appreciated that you said that I forgot that I was excited about, because I was so excited about so many things, is the 7-week exercise of who is the man you want to become? Because it's one thing that I take my clients through too is like, I mean, it's more from I'm talking to divorced men. They're trying to get back into the dating world. And it's like, okay, who's your ideal woman? And just be very, very specific. And Darren Hardy, I borrowed this from him. And it's what I did. I wrote out like a 3-page Google Doc of like, who is my ideal woman and who is she not? And then you ask yourself the second question of like, who do I need to become to attract this woman? And that's the key question. Who do you need to become to achieve what you want to achieve, right? And so excited about this conversation, man. So the second question I ask every single guest is, what is some homework? What are some quick wins? And you may have already given it to them, but I like to just affirm where men can get some motivation, some baby steps over the next 7 days. What is one thing that they can do every single day that's a baby step? It's not going to be sexy. It's not going to be something they're going to put on Instagram, that you believe can start getting them those little quick wins and that momentum towards what they actually want.
You touched on earlier how when you start breaking promises with yourself, it's a downward spiral. And in the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, he talks about how our subconscious is a machine. This machine doesn't have logic like you and I. And I refer to it, I have a video in my program called Go Fuck Yourself, San Diego. Do you know the scene in Anchorman where he says that?
I love that movie, man. It's one of my favorite all-time movies.
He just read the teleprompter. It didn't matter what was
Who
on
put
there.
the question mark on the teleprompter?
So that's what our subconscious does. So if we say, oh man, I suck, our subconscious doesn't know that that's sarcastic. If we have self-deprecating humor, our subconscious doesn't know that that's sarcastic. So I guess I have two answers. Number one, you need to decide for yourself what is one thing you're going to do this week. Make it as small as can be, because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between I said I was going to make my bed and I did it versus winning a gold medal. Your subconscious takes both of them as 1 point on the scoreboard of I'm the type of man who does what he says he's going to do. So I encourage the listeners to choose your own thing that is so small, but it's yours, and stick to it so that you can start racking up points for the home team that says, oh, I'm the type of guy who does what he says he's going to do. I'm the type of guy who does what he says he's going to do, over and over and over again. Because I don't want to make it so big that you feel like a failure. And the second thing I would do is I would catch yourself every time you say I am, followed by something self-deprecating or negative. And I would double down by adding I am to every time you do something positive. I am the type of guy who goes to the gym. I am the type of guy who picks up litter on the side of the road. This is programming that subconscious. So drop the I ams from the negatives and double down on them, on the small wins. And that is my my homework for you guys.
Man, that's probably two of my favorite ones so far in the close to 40 episodes that we've done, man. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So I do want to take the last couple minutes for you to just, how can the men connect with you? What if they're ready, rocking right now? What are some of the things that they can engage in you with? I know you do some one-on-one coaching, and you have a group, a community that the men can make an investment and join. So just give maybe a 60-second kind of like, I don't know, informative ploy for that. Why should the men check that stuff out? And how can they?
No doubt, man. First of all, anybody who wants to take me up on the food photos, my email is coach@kevinvarno.com. If I get an email that has 3 days worth of food photos in it, you get a free coaching call. So what we'll do is we'll hop on a Zoom call, we'll look at the photos, and I will guide you to make your own decisions of 3 things that you can start right away. So that's the first open door. Coach@kevinvarno.com. Send me those food photos and we'll get the ball rolling. We'll meet you where you're at and start with something that is attainable. But I try and give everything away for free. On my LinkedIn, I post every day with my own vulnerability. I tell my story and I just give away tips. Today on LinkedIn, my post was, what could a 40-something-year-old man do to maintain his weight and protect his muscles and joints as he ages. So I try and give everything away I can on there. Andrew hit the nail on the head. None of you have an information deficit. You all know that if you eat less and move more, your weight will improve. However, you've always known that. It is not information. It's identity, it's application, it's environment. And if you need help, send me an email. Let's have a conversation. I work with men one-on-one. I work with men in groups of 3. And I have a Facebook group. It's not a free group. It is a paid group. But this Facebook group is designed to create a community of people who have skin in the game, who care about their health, and we can all support each other. So those are my 3 avenues to help. Depending on how much personal attention you need and what your budget is, we can work one-on-one, we can work in a group of 3, we can work in a Facebook community, or we could just go over your food diary for free. But let's get this ball moving.
Awesome, man. Well, I think, man, you, again, have all the information you need. So, you have a choice. You could say, this is great knowledge. I'm just going to store it in my knowledge bank, and someday I'll do something about it. Or you can choose to take action. You can choose to start today to become that man that is inside your head, the best version of you that is there. And maybe you've been him one day in the past and you lost your way. Or maybe he's something on the horizon that you want to become. Or both. I don't know. So I appreciate you, Kevin. I want to just give you some praise here because I think that I really appreciate the investment in vulnerability and authenticity that you have taken in your life, because it shows in you. Like, I feel like you are someone who is genuine and someone who is real and someone who gets it and someone who actually cares about the man sitting across the stool from him, no matter if he's a client or not, because of the investment in yourself and how much you've practiced those vulnerability moments and how much you've strengthened that muscle, because I think that's a hell of a lot more important than, your bicep or your abs or whatever. So I really appreciate you as a man and your investment into the men listening to this today.
Andrew, thank you so much. That's a tremendous compliment, and thank you for the opportunity to speak and be here. It's been an absolute pleasure.